Hello, I'm Anthony Greene, and where am I? In the community of Cottage, St. George. We've come to find a man who is celebrating 20 years in ministry, and he's been pastoring a church in this district called Kingdom Empowerment New Testament Church of God. Bishop Kenroy, the pastor of this church, and he's also the bishop of the New Testament Church of God in Barbados. As he celebrates 20 years, we take a look at his life, the highs, the lows, the victories, the challenges. And I know you'll be blessed and encouraged by his story. Welcome back as we continue the celebration of Bishop Dr. Kenroy Burke, pastor of the Kingdom Empowerment New Testament Church of God. And we've been enjoying his journey, taking a look at his life from boyhood days and coming right up through the school and his role as teacher, his role as pastor, and exactly how he managed those early years of leadership. And one of the things we're going to be talking about in this episode is the people who he met along the way, who would have helped him along this journey. Dr. Kenroy, welcome back.
Thank you so very much, Anthony.
Great to be celebrating with you. As I say, our earlier episodes were just fantastic, and I'm looking forward to hearing more because you've been extremely encouraging. And I know that you don't do this alone. You don't progress alone. You don't experience success alone, and you don't get through your highs and lows alone. But the more we realize that there are people around us there who can help us, the better it is for us, especially when they're not always the type of people who will pat us on the back and say, well done. But sometimes they tell us the things we don't want to hear, or maybe the things that others may not want to share with us. Who are some of those people that helped you along the journey? How and why?
Well, Anthony, I have to start from the place of my mom. My mom was one of my greatest supporters. What was kind of interesting about that whole relationship is we were quite similar in personality. So we started out in what you would want to consider a slightly contentious relationship. I just like she was extremely bold. She would say exactly how she felt about things. I was the same. But then we grew really, really close, and I really, really appreciated her influence on my life. She was the type of person who encouraged education. She encouraged us to go after our goals. She pushed us. There were 5 of us, and she literally pushed every single person into destiny. And that was one of the things that was probably so warming for me, because she eventually became a member of Kingdom Empowerment right here with me. She worshiped here, and again, that was tremendous. That was a major blessing to us as she worshiped here with us. So I would want to start there, as she was there, obviously from the formative years. She was a cheerleader. She wasn't always saved, but she would still be encouraging, still pushing you. And even when I was a youth leader at Roval Avenue New Testament Church of God, she was one of the persons who would prepare refreshments for me when I had youth sessions and do several things. If I called on her for anything, she was always there. So I started there. She was a pillar in my life. When I lost her back in 2006, it was probably one of the most devastating periods for me. But I always felt as though she was there throughout that entire journey, working along with us. I wish sometimes that she would have been also a major part of everything. So she spent the first 2 years with me here at Kingdom Empowerment, and then fortunately she passed. But in that short period, she served the Lord, and she really gave her heart to the Lord.
Yeah, let's speak a little bit about that loss, because there are times when people who are important to us are removed from our lives and we crash. We cannot find the strength and the will to go on. That person who have meant so much to us, we struggle. And we struggle to the point where we even regress. And if you look back at a time that would have changed that course, there are some of us who could look back and say, it was this period that I found difficult to get through. So loss can do that to you, whether it's a loss experienced by a loved one who has passed, or it could be loss in another form. So, for example, a job that you really loved, and you cherish this job, but then you lost that job, and it just wasn't the same after that. So loss can do that to us. And they'll tell us what you felt. Take us back to that time, and because you mentioned it was one of the most challenging. So, what did it do to you?
So it's kind of interesting because I have a slightly different perspective on it now. I would want to say that the loss was tough because we had grown so close, and she was an advisor. She was the kind of person that would be there to guide you, to give you advice. Even as an adult, she would still be there to tell you when you're doing foolishness, when you're doing something that you ought not to. So I always valued that input. So that input was lost. But this is the thing, that was the everyday input. When you would pick up the phone and call and say, Mom, what to do here? What you think I should do? Which one should I go away from? Whatever. That was the everyday input. But Anthony, I value so much the advice, the moments that we spent together, that even after her loss, even after she had passed on, it wasn't a case where I had lost everything because the input was so great. So that was the perspective that I have that was different after, because I could easily sit down and say, Mom would have said this, Mom would have done this, Mom would, and it was to me along that journey. I was now starting out as a pastor, so several of the things to do that people would say that I have accomplished, she would not have even been a part of. In fact, she passed away October 2006, and I got married December 2006. And what was so significant about it is that she had bought my wedding gift and everything. So that spoke volumes to someone who was not there physically, but still was influencing things. She bought our wedding gift. She had everything there organized through my aunt. So it was still a very real experience of knowing that even though she was not there physically, her presence still remained because of the impact that she had. And I think that for me, it really taught me to appreciate people a whole lot more. I became very, very pro-family, very focused on family. It caused me to start to value moments that I had with people, and I recognized that every single person who came into my life had a role to play. It was significant, but every single person had a role to play. So I would always try my very best to glean as much as I could from those persons before, they pass on.
It's really good how when you focus on what people have deposited inside of you, you carry this presence of them, if I can put it that way, and you can rely on that. And therefore it puts the loss into perspective. So yes, there's loss of the person's physical presence, but really and truly they've deposited in us something so special that they continue to be with us. And maybe it's a point to encourage people who are stuck in that place of missing the physical presence so much that it is so hard to move on. But what do you say about the importance of leaving something special and us focusing on what people mean to us and what they have deposited in us?
Yeah, so even in that whole one of the critical things about life is that we must have something to pass on and something that is lasting. People call it legacy, people call it all kind of different things, but I just believe that every single person has something to pass on and something that is lasting. We have the option of making sure that it's either positive or negative. We determine which one is going to be. But for us as believers, we believe that we would want the positive impact. So there are persons who pass through our lives, and sometimes we think to ourselves that the time was too short. God in His wisdom never ever allows someone to come into your life for too short a period. I believe that God would have allowed that person to come in, and everything that they were supposed to deposit into your life would have been deposited within that time frame. And it means then that you appreciate those moments. One of the things that I had to do consistently, yes, there would have been moments where I really felt the pain of that loss. And trust me, Anthony, 18 years later, I still, vacillate with those emotions sometimes. But one of the things that I had to always do was to think about the positive impact that was left there. It was so positive that it outweighed all of the hurt and the pain and everything. And then also to think that she had invested so much into my life for me to continue on and to achieve, not to sit under my juniper tree and mourn and wish that I were gone too. She had deposited enough within my life for me to be able now to do the things and start to see them accomplish in my life. And that was probably one of the only things that really hurt sometimes. That when you say, I wish my mom were here to see. She never got to see her grandchildren from myself. She never got to see, obviously, several accomplishments and things like that after that period. So it would have been great if she would have been a full part of this 20 years. But God, in His wisdom, knew that she was supposed to come at the top of and before and kind of lay that foundation. And it is persons like her now that I could comfortably say I've stood on the shoulders of these persons to be able to celebrate 20.
Yeah, thank you for being so open about that with us. I know you're a man that loves sport. And as you speak about those things that people do, that they strike a chord with us. I think about moments in sport that make you say, I want to run like Usain Bolt, like his record breaking races. We'll be forever thinking about seeing him or remembering him line up against some of the best in the United States of America, Tyson Gay and and these guys, and what a big matchup. And yet he is able to strike to victory. Say, I want to be like Usain Bolt or Brian Lara when he breaks a record. I want to be like that. And when you speak about your mom, even though those are big things, we have the opportunity to do the same. It may not be a big national record or a big sporting feat, but it is an opportunity to do something that is memorable in the lives of those who are with us. Can you tell us about some of the other people in your life and the people who have done something remarkable that just impacted you and encouraged you on to success in your area of pastoral ministry?
So to be honest, I mean, like in front with you, it could probably take a couple episodes for me to focus on each person. But in a nutshell, I would want to speak up front about the influence that my pastor, Reverend Esther Seeley, had on me. Reverend Esther Seeley, she was a gem of a woman. She was the person who gave me my first opportunities at everything ministry-wise, except pastoral ministry. Everything ministry-wise, she would have given me that first opportunity. She invested in our lives. It was under her ministry that I was saved. It was under her ministry that I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. It was under her ministry that I started my journey in ministry. At one point in time at the church, she gave me the opportunity to be the assistant Sunday school superintendent, Sunday school teacher, youth president, and head usher all at the same time.
You were still a young man.
I was still a young man.
Teenager?
Teenager, started with teenage years, and then I went straight on into my early 20s. Because when I started ministry here at the Kingdom Empowerment, I would have been in the late 20s. So she gave me that opportunity to be able to just serve. And that was a joy to be able to preach the word of the Lord. I started preaching at 14. And she was the type of person who would sit by, watch you, and then she would bring you, sit you by her, and have a conversation. So if there were things that she noticed that you needed to work on, she would say that. But then she would also be that great encouragement, really, really big encouragement. She was the type of pastor that as a young man, if I'm a young man, teenage years, walking through town with my friends and I see my pastor, I would shout, "Pastor C!" Right, because she had that impact. She had that kind of impact. I don't know if you've ever seen, that operation. You don't want necessarily shout your pastor when you're walking through town. But she was the type of person that you easily gravitated towards. She was a spirit-led, spirit-filled lady, and she invested time and energy. I share a couple of secrets, which I know even if she were alive, she probably wouldn't want to hear it. But even when my mom was going through challenges as a single parent, financially, etc., with us, Pastor Celie stepped in there and she supplied things. She gave my mom finances to be able to work with and assist her with 5 growing children, all of us growing just a couple of years apart of each other. So that was a pastor who would pick you up from home. We were in Bank Hall, and she would pick us up from home and drop us to church and bring us right back home. And so just to encourage us and to make sure we were there. She was the type who would call you and say, I remember when I was starting university, I know you're starting university here, take this, do this, we'll have your fees. That was the type of person. So that impact that she made on our lives was beyond just pastoral. It was personal. It was really personal, and it taught me a whole lot, because by the time I became a pastor, then that is the kind of operation that I started to work with. Where I don't know if you remember the old days, the older people would fold their hands and just put their hands, and nobody had to know. Nobody was aware of what they were doing. All they were interested in is making that investment in your life.
You speak about an extension of Barbadian life.
Yeah.
We experience so much of that in church, where there is that person that takes interest in you or your family, and they help. You may have even a great aunt or a godmother who would slip a $20 in your hand, know, and
that was it.
It is really a feature of Barbadian life and family that we don't speak about as often as we should, Bishop.
Exactly. And church back then, and this is one of the things that I think that we have lost a whole lot of. People view church as the extended family. So it wasn't a place where we went on Sundays, probably occasionally on Wednesdays. It was my extended family. So people wanted to be there. So every time the doors were open, people rushed to be there at church, rushed to be a part of it. So we built really close relationships. We would meet and talk and everything else just along the way. Really close, really intense relationships. But Pastor Celie then became a part of our home. And there was a case where if we misbehaved or we did something, my mother would threaten us with, "I'm going to it was that kind of reverence for her. Yeah. And she was probably no more than 4 feet 6 inches the most, but spiritually looked up to her. Even if not physically, we spiritually looked up to her. But then I said, we're into someone like Bishop Dr. Alva Hunt, who saw that call on my life. I did not want to believe that he was just desperate for pastors, so he called me. I believe that he would have in some way felt as though there was something in this young man. He reached out to me and he asked me. I remember standing there at River Road when the breaker run our Bible school classes, and he looked over me and he asked me, "Have you ever thought about pastoral ministry? I'm looking for pastors, and I think that the call is on your life." At that point in time, obviously it was no for me, but he saw that. But then one of the things that happened, which was kind of different, is that when I was brought into Cottage New Testament, back then that was the name, he didn't just come and drop me off here, then come back and do the installation and then disappear. He would always be there to work along with and to make sure that we were able to get through ministry. He was never ever the type of person who was too difficult to contact or too difficult to have a conversation with. He always made himself very, very available. And his very quiet way of looking you in the eyes and listening to you, not saying one word, and then just that very clear, distinct statement that he would make, whatever that statement was, and then that's it. But he would leave you with just one statement because he listened, and he heard a little bit more than just what you were saying. But his statement would always cause you then to walk away and to think about the situation differently and to be able to find a solution for it, whatever it was. So he was always there supporting along the way. And then obviously another part of my tenure would have been under Bishop Martin Brewster, who continued really to be there available, and I've never had any issues with reaching him or getting advice from him or anything support from him. He was always extremely supportive of the ministry.